All right, so standard 4, describing distributions. This is where we're using SOX. So SOX stands for shape, outliers, center, spread. And SOX is a way for us to describe the distribution of a data set, usually in a histogram. So here's all of our objectives, and basically the objectives align directly with SOX, shape, outliers, center, spread. So here's our example for standard 4, describing distributions. Using the same data set as standard 3, describe the distribution following SOX. Remember to check for outliers, right? So the O in SOX stands for outliers, so they are reminding you to check for them. They also provide you with the formula for what is considered to be an outlier. We have the lower boundary is Q1 minus 1.5 IQR, and the upper boundary is Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. So, couple of things here. Describing distributions, all of this work needs to be in the calculator. So the first thing that you have to do here is take that data set and put it in L1 or any of the lists in your calculator. The way you do that is you hit the stat button on the calculator, and then you'll see an option that says edit, and you'll just hit enter, and that will bring you to the lists. So go to the lists, punch in all the numbers, and then you should be able to get the summary statistics, which will provide you with all of the data that we need so that we can actually assess this distribution using SOX. So if you want to give that a try, go for it. If you want to just keep playing the video, I will go through that with you. Okay, so again, here's the button pressing. Stat, calc, one variable stats once you have the data in your lists. So I'm assuming that the data from the previous slide is in the list already. And you should see X bar at the very top, which is your mean, 32.567. Standard deviation, you're looking for the SX notation for that, 10.637. The median is provided if you scroll down, and Q1 and Q3 are also provided, and the difference between them gives you the IQR. So when you are describing distributions, you're either going to be talking about symmetric data or skewed data. If your data is roughly symmetric, you're going to be using the mean and the standard deviation for your center and your spread. I'll say that again. If your data is symmetric, you're going to use the mean and the standard deviation to talk about center and spread. However, if your data is skewed, you're going to use the median and the IQR as your center and spread. So mean and median are both measures of center, and standard deviation and IQR are both measures of spread. Picking and choosing which pair of them you use depends upon the shape of your distribution. But now that we have all of this, we can proceed and we can talk about shape. So again, this is the histogram from standard 3. And looking at the histogram, there is a slight tail on the left-hand side. So I would say that it is skewed left. And also it is single peaked. It seems like there's a peak between 35 and 42. But just one single peak on this graph. So it is unimodal, which means one peak, and skewed left. That is our shape. Let's check for outliers. So for outliers, it's all about the formulas. Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR, Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. So the O in SOX stands for outliers. We go ahead and we do that work. We end up with a lower boundary of 3.5. We end up with an upper boundary of 63.5. If there are any numbers in our data set less than the lower boundary, they are outliers. If there are any numbers greater than the upper boundary, then they are outliers. However, when we look at the original data set, there are no numbers less than 3.5 or greater than 63.5. So there are no outliers. If there were numbers that went beyond those boundaries, we would just say, this number is an outlier. That's all you'd have to say. Just identify the number. Okay, now for the SOX. So because we said that the shape of the graph was skewed, or sorry, I should say now it's time for the C and the S in SOX, the center and the spread. Since we said that the shape was skewed, we're going to be using the median and the IQR for the center and the spread. So the center is 35.5 because that's what we got for the median. And the IQR is 15. That's the measure of our spread. So in summary, this is what it would look like on your quiz. This is the only piece that I'm looking for when I'm grading these. Shape, unimodal and skewed left. Outliers, none. Center, 35.5. And spread, 15. So they're all connected, right? The skewed left tells us that for the center, I'm using the median, and it tells us that for the spread, I'm using the IQR. If the shape had been roughly symmetric, you'd be using your mean and standard deviation for the center and spread. And that's standard 4, describing distributions. There's a lot there, but the calculator's doing all the work for you.